Today I will tell you a story that happened to me and greatly changed my life. The story will be long but interesting and so. My name is William. I'm 34 years old. My wife, let's call her Nastya, she's 30. We got married 5 years ago when I was full of strength and energy. In the last month, our marriage was going through hard times. We got into a little debt when friends helped us, which caused constant arguments and a tense situation in the marriage. I wanted to close the debt as soon as possible before the holidays. It was December and my brother, let's call him Carl, he's 37, had a birthday, plus New Year's was coming up. Constant overtime to pay off debts forced me to come home late, which my wife wasn't too happy about, thinking I was staying late not because of work, but because I was going to some club or something. I worked as an assistant chief accountant at a construction company, and with New Year's coming up, we decided to take on finishing up residential building projects. But someone messed up when purchasing construction materials, which caused a panic in accounting. But for some reason, all the work got dumped on me. So there was plenty of work. Right before Carl's birthday, we were told that Thursday and Friday would be days off at my company. I wasn't thrilled about this, since the day we were supposed to get paid was after the break. I was counting on getting paid on Friday, so I could buy Carl a birthday present. And then Carl invites me to work with him for a few days. He worked as a guide for a camping company that did this in Wyoming, where we all live. He wanted me to join him so we could relax and celebrate his birthday at the same time. The tour was scheduled to start on Thursday after 10 a.m. and end on Saturday after lunch. My brother said he'd be happy to have me there as a gift, and not to forget about the salary, he'll give 40% of what we earn. And I agreed. I discussed everything with my wife, and she agreed to my absence. In the evening after work, I packed all my things, called a taxi, and went to my brother's place. There we started discussing all the details of the hike, and then early the next morning we headed to the tour's starting point to meet up with the group. This time we were taking them to the mountains. We had to climb to the top, set up a winter camp, and enjoy the magnificent sunset view. The trip went smoothly, and Carl and I worked hard to make up for lost time and relax. It was already evening. I asked the whole group sitting on the cold logs around the campfire to stand up. I make a toast in honor of my brother's birthday. Everyone clapped when I said the words, and we all sat down to rest further when I finished the toast. After finishing the tour, we loaded into the car with the group and drove back to base. From there, Carl and I went home. Carl and I had a great time. Returning to his house, we drank, laughed, and celebrated his birthday again. That evening, he dropped me off at my house. I went in and found that Nastya wasn't home. I tried to call her, but she didn't answer. I decided to write to her asking where she was. I waited 5 minutes and finally she replied to my message, saying she was at a girlfriend's party, that the girlfriend's relatives had come to visit, so they decided to relax and have some fun. I wrote back, okay, and decided I'd just go to sleep. The next morning I woke up, and Nastya still wasn't there. I made myself breakfast and called her. She picked up at the last second and explained that her girlfriend offered to spend the night at her place, and she was already on her way home in a taxi. She came in looking like she had a hangover. I asked how she was doing, and she said she just drank too much, then went straight to the bedroom. It seemed a little strange to me, but I didn't make much of it. The next day I went to work. A lot of work was still unfinished, while most of the employees weren't working those 2 days. A couple of my colleagues fixed the mistakes of those idiots, which at least somehow fixed the work. I came home in the evening. Nastya was acting strange. No angry screams about me coming back so late, music playing in the house, and she just rushed past me saying, "Hey honey, dinner's on the table," before disappearing into the other room. It was weird, since she hadn't behaved so carelessly for a long time. But I was glad. At least for a while I could almost forget about the looming debt that we needed to pay off, ideally before the new year, which was only 5 days away. I got serious about it. Like a madman, I did all my work in 5 days and managed to save up enough money to pay off all the accumulated debts. New Year's Eve was fast approaching with just 1 day left. Nastya and I had everything ready, guests invited. I invited my brother Carl and his girlfriend to our place for the holiday, and a mutual friend of ours was supposed to come too. Nastya invited 2 of her girlfriends to her place. After lunch, when I was preparing everything for the next day's celebration, Nastya told me she wanted to go sit with her girlfriends before New Year's. I wanted to say no to her. There was still a lot to do before the holiday, but if I refused, she would have made a scene before the holiday, which I really didn't want to let happen. The mood was good, all the problems were solved. I didn't want to spoil such a note. I still decide and tell Nastya to go have fun. As the evening went on with no sign of Nastya, I started to worry. Then I get a message from her saying she's staying the night. I wasn't sure what to say. I agreed to a simple okay and asked her to make sure she gets back by lunch, which was met with an awkward silence before she finally replied with a short, "Okay, bye, honey," and hung up. Something in her voice didn't sit right with me, and it kept me up tossing and turning until morning. When dawn came, Carl and his girlfriend arrived first. They promised to help get the place in order. Our friend showed up soon after. And then two of Nastya's friends came in, said hello, and immediately asked where Nastya herself was. I asked them the same thing, but was met with complete surprise. "Wait, she wasn't with you?" they asked, to which I replied that she didn't tell me anything, except meeting up with new friends. And then one of them dropped a bombshell. Nastya had apparently gone to a party with some guy she recently met, along with her new friends. They gave me a potential address. I grabbed the keys to Carl's car, briefly outlined the situation to him, and rushed off to find my wife. I drove up to the address Nastya's friend gave me and saw a fancy house with a new Mercedes parked in front of it and a fence surrounding the property. I rang at the gate, and a guy about 25 years old came out. "Hello, can I help you with something?" he asked. "I'm wondering if a woman named Nastya could have been here yesterday," I asked, trying to contain my growing anxiety. The young man shook his head. "I'm sorry, you must be mistaken. No one by that name was here yesterday. In fact, never has been," he curtly told me. "Have a good day," and turned to go back inside. That's when I noticed the idiot hadn't completely closed the gate behind him, which should automatically close and lock when the sensors are triggered. I took the opportunity and slipped through the gap, only vaguely aware that the house probably had security cameras, but I didn't care anymore. The guy went into the house, and I noticed an open window that seemed to lead to an office. I took off the screen as quietly as possible and climbed up and through it. I made every effort to move silently to understand what was going on here. I managed to get to the stairs leading to the second floor when I heard female laughter that sounded eerily like my wife's. Quietly creeping up, I followed the sound until I reached a door left ajar. Peeking through the crack, I felt my blood run cold. That 25-year-old jerk was holding my wife in his arms and caressing her. I was completely stunned to the point that I'm still shocked when I tell this story. I made a snap decision not to burst in there and make a fool of myself by making a scene. Instead, I just turned around and left. To be honest, I should have been burning with rage, but I felt nothing. Just pure, genuine shock at Nastya's actions. I drove home in a daze, my mind spinning. When I walked in the door, everyone immediately asked where Nastya was. I mumbled that I didn't know and hoped she would show up soon. Eventually, she did come in, and the New Year's celebration began. I sat there the whole time like a vegetable, lost in thoughts about my wife's infidelity. That's how I spent the holiday. Now I have absolutely no idea what to do. I told Carl and his girlfriend what happened. We tried to think through the next steps. Carl was hoping for a positive outcome, but I wasn't so optimistic. The reality of the situation was not yet fully comprehended. How could Nastya do this to me? To us? I kept replaying the events over and over in my head, trying to pinpoint where something went wrong, how I missed the signs. Were there even any signs? I thought we had gotten through the worst and were finally back on stable ground. Sure, we had issues like any couple, but infidelity? It hadn't even crossed my mind as a remote possibility. Anyway, I decide to tell Nastya what I think, and if she confesses and gives a clear indication of such behavior, I will try to forgive it. That day at the office was long, and I couldn't wait to get home to Nastya to talk about it. I came home, set my briefcase down, and called for her. "Nastya, can you come here, please? We need to talk." She came out of the kitchen with a wary look on her face. "What is it, William? If it's about where I was on New Year's, I already explained everything. Don't start." I raised my hand to stop her. "I have proof you weren't with your friends, Nastya. Please, let's just sit down and discuss this calmly and openly." Her shoulders slumped as she sat across from me. I laid out all the signs I had noticed, her mood changing after the first sleepover at her friend's, the secret phone calls I supposedly started noticing, the account top-up she couldn't explain. At first she tried to deny it, but faced with the undeniable facts, she finally broke down. "I'm so sorry, William. I made a terrible mistake. That man meant nothing to me, I swear." She says she did it in a burst of stress in the marriage. The guy was rich but an idiot, and she thought maybe he could help us financially, but she knew that might sound like an excuse. I sighed heavily, my heart torn between anger and sadness. "This isn't something I can easily forgive and forget, Nastya. You broke our marriage vows, my trust in you. I think I need some time apart to process this." "No, please," she begged. "I'll do anything to fix this. I'll prove my devotion to you and our marriage. Just give me a chance." Against my better judgment, I agreed. "All right, you have until the end of winter to show me you've changed and earned back my trust, but I'm going to stay somewhere else for now. I just can't be around you right now." She nodded with tears in her eyes as I packed a bag and prepared to temporarily move out. I had no idea what the coming months would bring, but I knew my once happy marriage would never be the same. Feeling lost and alone, I threw myself into work the entire next week, going through the motions in a melancholy haze. My colleagues threw me concerned looks, but I brushed off any questions. How could I explain my situation? That weekend, a coworker invited me to a party at a local bookstore. Desperate for a distraction from my troubles, I decided to go. The store was packed with a cheerful, slightly drunk crowd. As I sipped a beer and tried to mingle, I caught the eye of a vivacious young woman across the room. She approached me with a warm smile. Let's replace her name with Gwen. She was 27 years old. "Hi there. I don't think I've seen you at one of these parties before. What's your name?" "William," I replied, shaking her offered hand. "No, it's my first time here. I was just invited here, so here I am." "Well, I'm glad you made it. Let me introduce you to some people." As Gwen pulled me into her circle of acquaintances, I forgot about my marital woes in no time. She was a charming host, making me laugh with her witty observations on everything from literature to the drunken antics of the other party-goers. As the party winds down, Gwen pulls me aside, her eyes sparkling mischievously. She gives me her phone number and offers to go to a concert together, saying she'd be happy to go to the concert we discussed. In that moment, emboldened by wine and desperately craving something new, I accept. We had a bit more fun until the store had to close, and I went home. At home the next day I decided to call Gwen. I wanted to invite her to the concert. The concert was taking place from Tuesday to Wednesday in the neighboring state of Colorado in the city of Denver. Tickets were all sold out, but I managed to buy 2 at an auction. Gwen agreed and we went. The concert is a noisy affair, filled with pulsing beats and swirling bodies. Gwen and I dance with wild energy, letting the music wash away our inhibitions. In a heady rush of adrenaline and attraction, she pulls me in for a searing kiss. Gwen kisses me. I was in a stupor. Does this mean I'm cheating? Although on whom? If Nastya and I are not communicating now and are on the verge of divorce at all. It was nice at that moment, she whispered in my ear. We'll go somewhere after the concert, and smiled slyly. I knew what it was all leading to. After the concert, she grabbed my hand. She was walking calmly at first and said, "Trust me," and laughed slyly, which really turned me on. She started to pick up the pace and ran to the nearest hotel, where we spent a passionate night. I freeze, my mind reeling. I say to myself again, am I really doing this? Cheating on Nastya when I haven't even decided if I can forgive her own infidelity? But then Gwen whispers in my ear, her hot breath on my neck, and all my doubts melt away. I was betrayed again. Waking up in the morning, I didn't see Gwen next to me, put on my underwear and went to see if her things were in the room. There weren't. There was only a note with the text, "Thanks for the days. Goodbye." And next to it, a drawn smiley face. Smile. I swore at myself. I was tricked again, and even got ripped off for good money. Tickets cost me $1,050, per person $525. Later, I found out from third parties that Gwen does this with many people. At first, I was upset. As I make the shameful journey home, my thoughts are a storm of mutual accusations and self-loathing. How could I allow myself to fall into the same trap I condemned Nastya for? Am I no better than her? When I finally returned to the house Nastya and I once shared, I'm struck by how much has changed in just a few short months. The house is immaculate, not a speck of dust to be seen. It seems Nastya has been busy preparing for my return in my absence. She greets me at the door, her eyes shining with uncertain hope. As we sit down and discuss our future, I feel the weight of all that lies ahead of us. The difficult conversations, the marriage counseling, the work to rebuild what we've lost. But I also sense a feeling of possibility, a glimmer of the love that brought us together in the first place. And as I place my hand on Nastia's belly, feeling the tiny life growing inside, I know I'm exactly where I'm meant to be. The ensuing months passed in a whirlwind of preparation and anticipation. Nastia and I threw ourselves into getting ready for the baby's arrival, painting the nursery, purchasing tiny clothes and toys, attending birthing classes together. With each passing day, I felt the bonds between us strengthening, the pain of the past slowly healing. But even as we worked on repairing our marriage, the specter of my own infidelity haunted me. I hadn't told Nastia about my involvement with Gwen, and the guilt ate at me constantly. How could I expect honesty from her when I was keeping such a monumental secret myself? But then I came to terms with it and continued to build a strong marriage. Everything would seem to be fixed. The relationship was somehow getting better. My brother and his girlfriend were happy about it. My brother advised to keep the situation more in my own hands, not allowing a repeat of the cheating incident. Carl's girlfriend agreed to help me. She would communicate with Nastia more often and report any strange moments to me. But if it were that simple, I would not have told this story. So, what happened next? March was already coming to an end. The house renovation was finished. Everything was stocked up for a year in advance. In short, the baby would have been born, and there would have been no problems. And then fate throws me another curveball. It was a sunny Monday. As usual, I went to my work. Upon arriving, I was surprised that half of the employees were not there. I approached my colleague to find out what happened, to which he replied that the issue of their overwork in December had come to a head. The culprit of the whole celebration was found. It was our new employee. He decided to transfer part of the money that was going to purchase building materials to his own account. He had been doing this for a week. Surprised by this, I went to work, to which my colleague replied that I could go home, since now most of the employees were under investigation at the police station, and I went home. At home, Nastia's second betrayal was waiting for me. Before even entering the house, I simply bumped face to face into that same 25-year-old guy who had previously supposedly helped my wife financially. I reflexively hit him, which made him fall and pass out. I ran into the house, and I see my wife lying on the living room couch. I have no words now to describe what I felt then. I just closed the door and went to my brother's place. I sat there for about 6 hours discussing why all this had started to haunt me. Right now, I don't know what to do. I am waiting for the trial and the divorce as soon as possible. My brother and I hired a lawyer who will sort it all out for us. It torments me for days, and I think that speaking out will make me feel better. It helped me in part. I want it all to end, and I sincerely wish for you not to get into a situation like this. Be vigilant and strong, so as not to get into a position like mine.